So I'm now going to discuss the third and the fourth reason why resistance did not happen more during World War II in the Holocaust in Europe. So we've mentioned already that the Germans were superior with their firepower. It was tough to go against them. We've also mentioned that the Germans would retaliate with something called collective responsibility. That would make those who wanted to resist definitely think twice, and more often than not resist at all. Here are the other two. The next one is called isolation of the Jews. So why would people not help try to limit what was happening in the Holocaust? It says that Jews were isolated in two ways, which made resistance difficult mentally to do, and then difficult also physically to do as well. It says the Nazis, plus centuries of anti-Jewish thought, had brainwashed the populations to not care about Jewish people. So, if you don't care about what happens to Jewish people, if you're maybe antagonistic or negative towards Jewish people, you definitely are not going to resist. So, one thing that blocked resistance was the history of thoughts about Jewish people and the current Nazi propaganda about them as well. It says the mistreatment of the Jews often took place in rural areas where other people did not see and weren't around to help. So in places where there weren't a lot of people to organize to help, the Nazis carried out a lot of their mistreatment. It said also Jews did not easily blend into local populations, maybe because of differences in their accent or their languages that they spoke. Also, maybe the religious customs, and even sometimes maybe their physical appearance. So, Jewish people were isolated, and if you saw someone maybe walking on the street that maybe you noticed didn't fit the local populations, a red flag might immediately come into your mind and say, hey, maybe this person might have escaped from the camp down the road. Maybe I should tell the authorities about what happened, because if the authorities know that I knew, then they could come after me. So isolation of Jewish people definitely eliminated many forms of resistance. And then finally it says this, secrecy and deception. That is an obstacle to people resisting. It says most Jews rounded up did not know their ultimate fate, making resistance by them very, very little. They were encouraged to take their belongings with them whenever they got on the trains, label their suitcases, and take their belongings with them. Therefore, if you're taking your belongings with them, you might believe the story that, well, we are just going to be resettled. There's no reason for me to try to stop what's happening. And by the way, if you did try to stop what was happening, not get on a train or not go to the train station when you were called to do so, what was the likely result for you? The likely result was going to be imprisonment and maybe death. So, if we think about Jewish people and their lack of resistance, I guess you could think of it this way. If you were given an order by the government to do a certain thing, you follow that order, especially if you didn't know the end result of that order, which might be death. Because we all know that if the government or if the police, in this case the Nazi government, tells you to do something, you should do it. Because if you do it, then chances are you're going to be okay. So resistance was very small. Rumors of death camps were hard to believe because nothing like this had ever happened before. So why resist if in the back of your mind there's not a main reason to resist? Because if you do resist, you know there could be violent consequences. Also, it says here, surveillance by police assisted everywhere by spies and informants, including children in the Nazi youth program, eliminated most possibilities for resistance in Germany and in German-held countries during the war. I guess you could say this. You never knew who could be watching you and who could inform on you if you were trying to resist or help. Who knows, if you go to the store and if you ask for an order of a certain supply that you never asked for before, or much more of a certain supply or food that you ever asked for before, might the shop owner think that maybe you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing? And of course, the shop owner would not want to be implicated in any kind of resistance effort. So it's quite possibly the shop owner might literally go to the police and inform on you. So you had to be super careful of what you were going to do. And like I said at the beginning, why was resistance so uncommon, it's because you always had to decide this: should I put my life on the line for somebody I do not know and maybe risk my family, my friends, and loved ones to a very violent fate? So that is the last of the obstacles to resistance.